I'm Bob.
And I'm Dan.
And we're going to take you through a valve clearance check and shim change. We've already done the valve clearance check, and we've taken measurements, and we know we have to change shims on all the exhaust valves. So it's going to be a demystifying process, hopefully, for all of you. This is not a step-by-step video. This is more a video just to show you what happens when you take the ST apart. It's essentially a process. It's very simple to do. It just takes time and patience. So if you just follow through with us, this will be heavily edited, so you'll only see parts of it. But you'll see what's underneath the valve cover. You see how to do valve clearance measures and checks, and you'll also see how to change shims.
There you go.
All right, we're back. Now we're going to take off the cams and change the shims. The first thing you need to do is mark your cam chain on your cam. Take a marker that I guess will put some permanent kind of mark down. Clean off the oil with some rubbing alcohol or some kind of de-oiler between the cam and the chain, and then draw a straight line across in two places so that you can align the camshaft with the chain exactly on the same tooth you took it off of when you're putting it back together. You also want to take off the cam adjuster dust cover bolt right here, and this is a cam chain tensioner, or you can just use a screwdriver, which is an 1/8 inch tip, to loosen the cam chain. So the first thing you want to do now is loosen the cam chain so the cam chain has no tension, and then we'll take off these bolts. We're only going to remove the exhaust cam because there's no need to change any of the intake shims, and this will make sure that the chain doesn't drop down into the engine.
The dust cover bolt is an 8mm bolt, so it comes up really deep.
Okay. Now we're just going to take off these bolts in a cross pattern so that we don't warp any of the pieces as we take them apart. And what you also might want to get is a rubber mallet or the rubber end of a hammer, because these cam covers might not slip off easily, and you don't want to pry them off with a screwdriver, and you don't want to hit them with a hammer. You need something fairly soft to just nudge them off. Now you're going to want to make sure you have a torque wrench on hand, because when you put these back, you're going to tighten them in the same order but in reverse, but you're going to want to make sure they're torqued to the specification of the manufacturer. That's very important because you don't want to strip these bolts, and you also don't want them loose and coming apart in the engine while the engine's running. That would not be good. Okay, now we're loosening these. The camshaft chain has no tension on it, so it's not going to be pulling down on the camshaft. While he's doing that, what I'll be using is a magnet. It's a fairly powerful magnet to make sure when I take the valve buckets off that the shims come with them, and the shims don't drop and fall into the engine. Because the shims are very, very small, like a small battery for a hearing aid. That's how small they are.
So now we've got all the bolts out. We're ready to tack this up.
Let's try to pull it, see if it will come up, but it might not. It did, good. And just pull it out very slowly. And what we're going to do is put it down, and I like to put the bolts right back in it, just the way they go.
The two underneath. Right there.
I like to put them back in exactly the way we took them out, because we'll be in with the shims for a little bit of time.
Yeah, these are for the front.
This might not come out easily. You might need to tap it. Once you get the hammer, just show them how to tap it. Okay. If you have to, you just tap it here a couple times, tap it up here a few times on the side with a very soft surface.
Say a little bit. Let's see. Not coming.
back in there. Yeah, but it has dowels in, and that's what kept it from coming up easily. Oh, I don't see the dowels. Okay.
They're integrated into the.
Oh, they're there. Yes, I see them. They're right there. See that? Those are the dowels that provide the resistance. You just got to be very careful bringing it up. You can see we made absolutely no marks on this piece. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to lift up the cam chain. We've already marked it, so we know exactly what tooth it's going to go back on. There we go. Just put that right there. Okay. These are the buckets, and the shims are right underneath the buckets. Now what we do is we take a screwdriver, and we're going to get our shim kit. And get the micrometer too, so we can just do one at a time, because I don't want to have more than one shim bucket off at a time. One thing that we didn't mention at the top of the video is before you pull off the cams, you have to make sure that the number one cylinder, according to the manual, is at top dead center on the combustion cycle. That means that in the window it will say T1, and you should be able to slide your feeler gauge under each intake and exhaust in this number one cylinder, and there should be clearance. That means it's at top dead center on the compression. We did that before we started the video again. So make sure you follow the manual on that process. Okay, this is the magnet, and when you put this magnet on the bucket, it will pull up the bucket and it will pull up the shim. You want to do it? Just do it very slowly. There we go. Just pull it straight out. Careful. There we go. Okay. The shim should be right in it.
No, Steve.
No, I think it's here.
No, it's, I can see it right here.
Sure?
Yep. It says 155.
Oh, I guess you did. Okay. Why don't you grab it? Yeah. All right, you got it. All right, good. And there's a shim.
Wow.
And once you get your micrometer, let's measure it and just make sure it is what it says it is.
It says it's 155. So it says 155, but it's, well, let's see, it's 1.53, and it says 155, so it's 200 of a millimeter off.
Okay, and here's what has to happen. Since the clearance was too tight on the exhaust, remember it was 0.20, it should have been 0.25. That means that we've got to get more clearance between the cam and the bucket. In order to get more clearance, we've got to use a smaller shim because we've got to drop the bucket down. So the next smallest shim from this would be 0.05 millimeters less. So that's the one we have to pick out of the bucket to replace it with.
Okay,
So if that's 153, then we need...
well, I'm thinking that we got the formula in the book.
Yeah, but why?
Oh,
You don't need it.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
There is a formula in the book, and you can follow it. It's essentially saying that you've got to reduce the shim by an amount to make it fall within tolerance. We know that the tolerance has to be 0.25. We know we measured it at 0.20 here. So we definitely want to make sure that there's more clearance between the bucket and the cam. We want 0.25, so we've got to reduce the shim size since it's under the cam bucket by the next increment down, which is 0.05. So if we get The next increment lower than this, since the shim kit that we have goes in 0.05 millimeter increments, the next one down from this would increase the clearance from 0.20 to 0.25, since those go in 0.05 increments.
So you're just going 5 underside
Yep.
on it.
And then this one is actually measured out at 1.48.
Oh, beautiful. That's what you need.
That's it's a perfect 0.05. That should take us to a perfect shim.
Okay.
Okay, that's the one we put in. All right. Let's put that.
Put it right on here in the. There's a small indent where it'll fit right into, and so I can just push it right in there.
Okay, and then we'll put the cap back on. Now you gotta be careful putting the cap on because if you put it in crooked, it will be that one on. Now you don't want to wipe too much grease off of that
No.
because
Okay.
you want oil on it.
Okay. All right.
And we're actually going to put some special moly paste on the top of each of the buckets before we put the camshaft on because we don't want any abrading on the initial engine startup.
It went in very easy.
Okay, so next time don't take the oil off.
Okay. Yep.
All right, so let's do the next one.